Good morning. I think it's February 17th, Wednesday. What I'm going to be doing right now is I want to show you how I use my tools. For instance, my brushes, how I have my palette set up, and even how I use paint thinner and walnut oil. And it's just a way of sharing some ideas about how to set up your studio and use the tools. So first of all, when I start painting in the mornings, I have this wooden box that I got from a craft store, and it's just basically I think an 11 by 14 box, and everything fits inside of the box. I have a half paint tray that is filled with walnut oil. In order to keep the brush handles clean, I actually just have a piece of cardboard that I have clipped to the back of the half tray, and I almost never have to clean my brushes. Like, I don't ever wash them with soap and water. Basically, I'll use a brush for 3 or 4 months, and then just throw it out when the ferrules and bristles get messed up. And it actually saves me a lot of time and money to not wash and clean my brushes every day. So I usually just put a rag in the box with the stuff. And as I'm walking around my neighborhood, a lot of people throw stuff or put stuff on the curb. So I have this collection of mugs that I keep finding in people's curb discards. And I use those for the paint thinner. Occasionally I'll use a can to do that, but the mugs are very nice because when you pour the paint thinner out at the end of the day, you can wipe it out with some toilet paper, and it'll allow you to, it has a slick bottom, so it keeps the brushes in better shape than using a can and wiping the bottom out, which actually ends up getting kind of a rough residue in the bottom. So at the end of every day when I'm finished painting, the first thing that I do is I pour whatever paint thinner out that I have in these cups or mugs, and then I leave them overnight and inside a jar, and they settle, the dirty paint thinner settles out into the bottom, and the bottom of the jar actually has a whole bunch of dirty paint in the bottom, and it becomes very heavy, and so I can recycle the paint thinner and get fairly clean and clear paint thinner to use for the next day. So this is a good way of recycling my odorless paint thinner. So one of the things that I suppose I should mention, and I'll take a picture of this and put it on the web as well. I buy bulk walnut oil, and I usually just top off the container or the half paint tray with it. And one of the things that's kind of important about pouring out paint thinner and stuff out of jugs like this is actually you pour it out upside down from what you would think. And if you pour it out upside down, it doesn't glug. So you can actually control the flow a little bit better when you do that. And let me just show you usually I try to get odorless paint thinner, but synthetic or just regular paint thinner is fine. I have a window above my palette, so I usually keep the window open, and that's why I'm always dressed so warmly when you see me in my videos. So the next thing that I do is, because I'm too lazy the day before, I often leave my palette dirty till the next day, and I thought, oh, that's going to be great for this demo today, because what it'll allow me to do is to show you how I use these knives. So I've got these basically plastering knives that are like $1.50, and then this paint scraper. And the way that I actually sharpen this paint scraper is I use a piece of sandpaper. I wonder if I have one out. I'll show you how I do it in a minute. But so when I clean up the next day, I just use this big scraper on this sheet of glass that I got. I found a couple of stereo cabinets out on the street when I lived in Oakland, they were large enough, the stereo cabinet fronts, they were made out of glass, that I have two massive like tabletops, and this is just on a IKEA rolling cart, and so glass is a good surface to use as a palette because it's non-porous, and it's easily scraped off. And so I'm going to get rid of all this paint because this paint is about 2 or 3 days old. I'm going to flip it into a trash over here. Actually, most of this is a little old and gunky, so I'm going to get rid of most of this paint too, so that I can mix up some fresh. And you know, if you check out my other videos, you can see how I mix paint using these blades and stuff. This is just basically how I set up in the morning to try to get ready for a day of painting. Is I first clean up everything and squeeze out fresh paint and then mix paint, and then I paint. Usually I make enough paint to last several days. So in general, this is how it gets kind of cleaned up and cleaned off. And once I get these knives completely clean, I'm going to go over this stuff with a razor blade, and then I'll just show you how to sharpen this blade. So toilet paper is basically my buddy when it comes to cleaning in the studio, and you know, I have a lot of it. So if I bring this closer to the camera, the blade on this is super sharp, and the way that I sharpen it and keep it going for myself is I just get a piece of fine sandpaper usually, and I also use that for sharpening stuff, or for sharpening even pencils. And what I do is I just rub the blade in a circular motion, almost flat, or and it makes a really nice sharp edge that allows me to scrape the palette and the glass very easily. So it's a pretty good tool to use. And if that isn't sharp enough, then I have one of these, get these on Amazon or at a hardware store, just a tray with several hundred, I guess there are 100 blades in this, and I'll use a razor blade to completely finish the cleaning job so that there's no more stuff left on the glass or on the blades when I'm working. So I guess I should talk about my brushes for a minute and how I clean them when I'm about to start painting. So I have these blades, and I usually do a little mixing. You can watch one of my other videos. And I even have chips, which are house painting brushes. And so I usually just let the rest of the walnut oil fall off of the brush. Occasionally I'll pour all this walnut oil out, wipe out the tray, and put some fresh in, just so it's not so gunky. And then this is just paint thinner, and what I do is I bounce the brush inside the cup with the paint thinner. And I've been using this brush for, I think, months, like literally like 5 months so far, and it still hasn't worn out yet. And then I just have an extra clean rag where I wipe off the handle and the ferrule so that it makes it easy to paint. You can see how clean that brush is, and I do that with all my brushes. Just leave them in the walnut oil, and then when I'm ready, I just bounce it into the paint thinner. And then wipe it off on the rag that's in the box. And then if the handle's messy, I just wipe off the handle away from myself so that it pushes the paint off and I don't get anything on my hands. So I just wanted to show you my studio setup and the glass palette that I use and how I sort of recycle the paint thinner so that I save a little bit of money. And also soaking the brushes in this half tray of walnut oil makes the brushes last. Like some of the brushes that have been soaking in here have been for a year, and I can still just clean them and reuse them. So I'm hoping that maybe that'll save you some money too. Thank you. Thanks for joining me today.